And of course, you know about our line of work, that is MMM, market mix modeling. And there are some vendors, who are split into two camps. They believe that, prediction is all it takes and everybody should just focus on prediction. But deep down, there are other set of people, who believe that no, MM is all about accurate attribution, which means that you need to pay attention to the causal inference first. And only if you get the causal inference right, you can predict things right. Otherwise, you can, blindly make any algorithm predict really well. But is it causal at the end of the day is a big question, right? So what's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a really hot topic. So the first thing that drew me to MMM was exactly this. It was some people will present MMM as causal without understanding the caveats. So I
Mhm.
mean, MMM are very useful. It's a huge, very important piece of information tool for marketing attribution. It helps to have this big bird eye view on attribution between multi-channels and help with most of the algorithm to optimize in a second step and get basically the big suggestions and potential movements of your marketing attribution and hence your budget allocation. So it's incredibly useful, but it's important to recognize that most of the time this is based on predictive algorithm, predictive inference, which might suffer from what we call, technically speaking, endogeneity issues. It's biased, it's not exactly causal, it might be amplified by some factors that we call confounders. And then you have in this basically realm of marketing advice and tools, you have Arima Labs, who understood this very well and communicate a lot about this. So that's why I'm really glad to be here. Is basically first is to recognize the potential limitation of MMM without saying it's useless. No, it's very important. It has some limitation. Causal inference has some limitations. I mean, all the models have limitations. You need
Yeah,
assumptions.
all models have
Um,
assumptions. Yeah.
exactly, and let's not forget this. So I mean, MMM is a very useful piece of information. It's important that people widely recognize that most of the time it's correlational evidence, which still is useful with some limitation, and you want to augment and go beyond by first including some causal inference concepts, for example, controlling for some major confounders, and combining these correlational evidence with causal evidence. As you're doing at ARIMA, you will do some quasi-experimental methods to augment your model, to complement the model, which will answer different type of questions. So I think overall, it's MMM are very useful. It's the same as predictive inference. I have nothing against predictive inference. I mean, recommendation algorithm which are in e-marketing very powerful. I mean, you think about Meta, Netflix, Spotify, Zalando, Booking, uh, um, Airbnb. All these are really very rely a lot on recommendation algorithm. Recommendation algorithm are predictive inference, so it's traditional predictive AI, and you don't need to understand the cause. They don't need to understand why I might like this suit on this e-shop. You don't care about this. So sometimes correlational predictive inference can be very useful. You don't always need to answer and understand cause and consequences.
Great.
Then we
I think
can
there was
discuss this.
Yeah, I think there was one joke that, all these companies are, just one lawsuit away from going from predictive inference to causal inference. Because let's take example of, Meta or, Netflix. If they are filed a lawsuit on why did you recommend these movies to people or why did you recommend this news to the people, they have to open their algorithm and tell people, hey, we did this because, of X, Y, reason. And that is again going into the why rather than what happened, right? So that again opens the door to causal inference. Yeah, yeah. Please go ahead. You were saying something. Yeah.
Hmm. Yes, no, no. So exactly. But again, I mean, sometimes the thing is, in most of these companies, these algorithms are deep learning models, and it's hard to interpret, right? So it's huge, complex with a lot of parameters, and it's hard sometimes to understand exactly what drives the prediction. So even in image recognition or detection, for example, sometimes the algorithm will detect pattern, and it's not easy for a human to interpret. That's one main difference also between predictive AI and causal inference, which is particularly useful in this AI age, is that causal inference is really interpretable. You really focus on one factor. You interpret clearly the coefficient, the magnitude. You understand, and you draw even the graph. This affect this and that, which is called the causal graph, and technically speaking, DAG, directed acyclic graph. And this transparency, interpretability is also incredibly useful for business decisions because you have the assumptions clearly stated, you have the mechanism, the connections that are here and that you can explain to an executive as well.